eventually always get to our meeting.
Tells me of the people that like to listen in.
I stopped watching after that.
I gotta say, I'm not sure I would listen in. I would listen to some.
And is Jessica in the waiting room? She's in? Okay. Perfect. Nope. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. Portsmouth City Council meeting on January 8th, 2024. Happy New Year, everyone. We're first going to get started with a roll call.
Mayor Chaz Jones.
Here.
Ruth Cosby.
Here.
Councilor Ruth Cosby. Councilor Diane Crocker.
Here.
Councilor Matt Lehman.
Here.
Councilor Jessica Andrade.
Present.
Councilor Christopher McMorrin.
Here.
Councilor Teresa Nielsen is absent this evening.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. First thing we have on the agenda is public comment. Do you have anybody signed up for public comment?
No, nothing.
Anybody?
Nope.
Okay. So, moving on from public comment, really appreciate everybody being in the audience, though. It's nice to have some faces here close by. Mostly. First of all, we're going to go through the consent agenda, and we have our minutes from December 11th. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilor Lehman, seconded by Councilor Crocker. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Excellent. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Next on the agenda is our new business. And first, we're going to recognize the outgoing committee members. And while we are recognizing the outgoing committee members, that does not mean that they're not continuing on with their committee assignments. But first, we have a certificate of appreciation for Spencer Wynn, who is not here this evening, but in recognition of your commitment and service to the community on the budget committee from January 2021 to December 2023. And your efforts make Philomath a great place to live, work, learn, play. Thank you, Spencer. Goodbye, and we will get you this certificate. We also have a certificate of appreciation for Rose Bricker, who happens to be here, in recognition of your commitment and service to the community on the Park Advisory Board from January 2021 to December 2023. And yes, we have Van Hunziker, certificate of appreciation for your recognition of your commitment and service to the community on the Planning Commission from January 2020 to December 2023. Then Josiah, here's your certificate of appreciation for your commitment and service to the community on the Planning Commission. Really appreciate all you've done to help out. Thank you. We also have certificates for Dale Collins, former Mayor Dale Collins, for his service on the Park Advisory Board from January 2021 to December of 2023. And for Candy Ketz, for her service on the Budget Committee from January 2021 to December 2023. Really appreciate all you do. Philomath would be nearly as wonderful of a community without the service of our volunteers. So thank you. So, next on the agenda are the 2023 Council Standing Committee appointments. Technically, it'd be 2024, wouldn't it? But it was wrong on the agenda. Thank you for pointing that out. So, each year we have the opportunity to rebalance our standing committees, and we have we have ad hoc committees and other committee assignments for the city councilors ourselves. I make recommendations, and then the city council, for many of these, I make recommendations and the city council approves them. We haven't made any changes to the finance and admin, the police, or the public works committees. We also did not make any additional changes to the inclusivity committee. Did not make any recommended changes to planning commission assignments or the representative assignments for the Cascade West Area Commission on Transportation, or Campo, or the COG, or the Chamber of Commerce, or the Plymouth Community Foundation. We also kept the same, the Plymouth Community Services, Frolic and Rodeo, school district assignment. We made one change to PYAC, and we've got Teresa Nielsen on PYAC, taking off Council Lehman. And then we have the same assignments for the remainder, being the Willamette Criminal Justice Council, Hope Advisory Board, and the Philomath Fire and Rescue Board Liaison Board. So that's a summary of what we have here. We have a motion to approve.
We need to approve the committee and representative assignments as presented.
Thank you. The motion was made by Council McMorrin,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilor Crocker before you spoke.
I have a question.
Sure thing.
The Hope Advisory Board, so that wasn't a thing last year. Is this different? Sorry, I don't have the language right in front of me.
Yeah, so thank you for asking the question. Last year we did actually have you on that, Councilor Andrade, if I remember correctly, when we read, but I know
We
that
didn't have an option for me to be there. Like there wasn't a designated spot, so I didn't have a liaison agreement or assignment last
Okay.
year.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, just a few months ago, the city council signed an agreement to enter into that agreement with City of Corvallis and Benton County. So we're a formal member of the Hope Advisory Board now. And so that requires attendance from city manager and one member of the city council. So we can
Sounds
look at
good.
that a little bit closer, Council Andrade, and look at the schedules. I think they're, all of the organizations are having kind of new people on those assignments. So they're still trying to find a meeting date, but it sounds
Okay.
like those would be fairly consistent meetings.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to double check on that to see how that
No, you're correct. That is
worked out.
that is a new,
Yeah.
kind of new assignment.
Thank you.
That's right. If I remember correctly, I thought we tried last year but we weren't set up with them, and so they said we couldn't do that.
The only thing that we were really doing before, it was more like it wasn't really open for elected officials from the city to be part of those conversations. They were really more practitioners that were having conversations and interacting with the panel. So that has been formalized.
Great. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Councilor Cocker?
I'm assuming that it's fairly well represented, that we each have the same load. It just seems like Teresa's on a lot to me. And I just worry about her. It's not,
Yeah.
she represents us well.
I was also wondering about that, because she's also on 2 standing
Yeah,
committees.
yeah, she's on a lot.
Yeah. She indicated an interest, of course she's not here, but I didn't call her and talk to her. If it's an issue, we can always change it later. I could ask her, I can talk to her about it, just verify whether or not it's too much.
One thing I will say, if she does need something to come off of her plate, I would be happy to liaise with the school district, given my background. But
Yeah, and I thought about that, but since she was on.
yeah, no, I'm not trying to take it away from her, but just
Right.
if she needs some time.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Okay, thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have the Planning Commission appointments. We have both Van Hunsiker and Josiah have both applied to be on the Planning Commission again for the following terms, for 4-year terms this time. So, any motion to approve? Councilor Causey.
So moved.
Excellent. We have a motion made by Councilor Causey, seconded by Councilor Lehman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please raise your hand and say nay. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We'll get another one of those now.
Councilor Causey, did you have a question?
I just wanted to comment that the Planning Commission has been working very hard on updates to our development code and is working very effectively. So it's extremely important that we have these 2 members continuing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate the continued interest. Next, we have Budget Committee appointments. And we had Budget Committee members Candy Kutz and Spencer Irwin both come off, and then we had one application, Deanna Montiel, that has applied. So we still have 1 open position. But first, if I had a motion to approve Deanna's appointment.
Also, Deanna's in the audience tonight, so thanks for coming out.
Oh, so I didn't catch that, Deanna. Thank you for your reply.
I was able to have a conversation with last week. She's super excited about being able to help out. I put in the note she'd actually applied to be on one of the other committees and looked like it was going to be full. And so I said, what about this? And she's like, hey, wherever I can help out. So great attitude, and we're looking forward to getting to know her a little bit better. I think it's okay to say moved to Philomath not too long ago. So kind of new in the community and we're ready to jump in and help out. So
That's right. Yes, thank you very much for the interest. So do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we appoint Deanna to the Philomath Budget Committee and direct staff to re-advertise for an additional applicant until the second open position is filled.
So we have a motion made by Councilor McMorrin and seconded by Councilor Crocker. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And congratulations, Deanna.
Thank you.
Next, we have advisory board application. So we have, I'm recommending that we appoint both Rose Bricker and Owen Cass. Through those appointments, we did have a 3rd application by Byron Capps, very well qualified. Rose has been on the Park Advisory Board and was interested in continuing on. Owen had a wealth of experience that he brought. Byron did as well, but the way that Owen presented his stuff, I just felt like that was just a little bit stronger application. So I recommend that we go with Rose and Owen for that. Councilor Moore?
I read this. Is there a set number for the Park Advisory Board, or is it one of those? It's not one of those ones where it's like between. Okay.
And Councilor Causey?
Oh, I just wanted to question referring Roseberger's statement. She would specifying that if there are other candidates applying that haven't been a part of the PAB before, I would only want to be chosen for a PAB role if there was an empty spot that needs to be filled, which would seem to indicate that Brian Capps would be appointed.
Yeah, I did call and talk with Rose about that. And and she indicated that she had a very, very strong interest in being involved. So, yeah, that was the reason behind that.
Thank you.
Yes. Is that still the case?
Is absolutely the case.
And she's in the audience, so I just verified.
That changed my mind when I learned Dale was not reapplying.
Got it.
That changed my mind.
So, okay, do I have a motion to? Councilor Moore?
I move to confirm the mayor's appointments to the Park Advisory Board as presented.
So we have a motion made by Councilor McMorrin and seconded by Councilor Lehman.
I guess can we just encourage Brian Capps to like, I love when people want to be involved, and I hate that we can't, we often need more people, so I hate that we have.
I left him a voicemail. I would have liked to talk to him in person or over the phone at least, but he lives outside of city limits, so it's
Okay.
limited to the number of committees that he can serve on. And I believe he's a little bit newer to town as well, and again, just anxious to help out where he can. But the message I told him, I said he's on our short list, so if somebody has to resign or something happens, we need a volunteer, we'll be reaching out to him.
Okay.
I encourage him to look for other opportunities as well. Again, would have liked to have talked to him, but at least in the voicemail, I'm really grateful for him applying.
Councilor Andrade?
To that point, I think if there's any, just moving forward, if there's ever anyone who does not get chosen for a committee, it would be great to just automatically send them some information on the inclusivity committee, since anyone can join that. So I'd appreciate that if you could do that.
Yep. Thank you very much. Councilor Cocker?
I saw that we had another candidate that didn't get chosen. I happen to know this person and top quality, amazing person. Have we talked to them? Sal Hernandez?
Withdrew his nomination.
Oh, I did. No one told me that. Darn it. He's really good.
Yep.
Okay, so that is all we have for the various appointments. Next on the agenda is the building code. Oh, did we vote on it all?
No.
Nope.
Missed the last one? Okay.
We vote on the park.
Yeah. All in favor of passing the motion as stated, please raise your hand if you're aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for the reminder. Yes, and congrats to everybody for those appointments. Next, we have item D6, Building Codes Division Intergovernmental Agreement regarding the ePermit system approval. Chris, you want to go ahead and cover that? Thank you all.
You want to stick
getting
around for
to
the
the
e-permit
topic.
system? Come on.
It's ready to get exciting.
This is the kind of stuff that makes you want to run for city.
Yes. boy.
Oh, good for you.
So I can speak to this briefly. I think the key paragraph in here in the memo is the second paragraph under background. There's new rules about electronic submission of permits, and the current contract language with the city and the state doesn't include that language. So they've updated that language, and of course they took the opportunity while they were there to go through and make a few other changes. Those are highlighted in yellow. Nothing really material as far as functionality goes, as far as cost goes. So really, this is just making sure that the existing contract is in compliance with the new rules and the new legislation going forward. There will be a few, changes at the city as we're looking to accept all permits digitally and not any in person. We do that now with our mechanical and plumbing, all of our basic permits. We do that. We don't do that with like large scale like subdivisions and lot line adjustments and other things. We typically like to get the hard copies with a check still. So we will need to look into that, and there may be some budgetary impact down the road when we have to start collecting those online and receiving payment online and incurring those fees. Except any plan review or permit fee is over $500 just because the credit card charge gets so much higher. And so we may need to look at some point in the future if we started more of those of tacking on some type of administrative surcharge for those credit card transactions. Not cutting into us or adjust the cost so that it's. But for now, for the time being, this agreement, we've looked through it, attorneys looked through it, and pretty straightforward. But happy to answer any question.
Thank you. And, the attorney?
Yeah, I just, thank you. This agreement is titled Intergovernmental Partnership Agreement. It's really just a normal intergovernmental agreement. The city and building codes division are not partners in the sense that you would think of a normal general or limited partnership sharing all of the liability of everything that the building codes division does that the city doesn't know about, or vice versa. I think they were just trying to be friendly, but I did want to put on the record that no, we're not creating a new entity that's a partnership.
Thank you for that.
More like partner than it is partner.
Councilor Kazi.
Yeah, I have several questions actually, some for Mr. Brewer. The current document governing this arrangement, would that be this document without the yellow?
Yes, I'm not sure why we have the yellow here.
Okay. Is this a negotiable contract, or is it governed by the Department of Consumer and Business Support Services?
So any agreement is negotiable. However, they are not going to be very flexible. And the vendor that actually has the e-permit systems is also, like a lot of electronic vendors, not very flexible either. So I'm not going to say that it is strictly a take it or leave it agreement, but it comes very close to that.
Okay, so the same agreement essentially would apply to any participating jurisdiction.
That's correct.
Okay. I understand that the exhibit A3 is not included here. Is there a reason for that?
I don't know. Chris, do you have any idea?
No, I'd have to look through. What page are you on? City reporter put this together. She oversees the e-permitting system. Where is it referenced, Councilor Kazi?
Page 19 of 29, item 3.3.1, license fees. I assume this is charged based on the number of licenses issued.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd have to look. We have a. I think well, I might have to get back. I believe that yeah, I have to go back and look how that's set out. I don't know, the number varies a lot from year to year. I know we capture a surcharge for every transaction that's done. So every permit we release, the state collects a surcharge on top of that that pays essentially for the service that the contractor provides to the state and then everybody that participates in it. I don't know that we have an additional annual fee on top of that. I believe it's included in that 12% surcharge that gets added on there, but I may be mistaken there. I'd have to look at our financials a little bit closer to see if there's an annual fee that we pay for the software on top of that. But my gut is I don't believe we do. I'd have to look a little bit closer.
Well, there's a $50,000 cap on expenses, and I need to have a clearer understanding of how this works and how it's accounted for before I can support signing.
Chris? The deputy city recorder, when we were reviewing this, did say that our cost of the e-permitting licensing is included, I believe, in our agreement with Benton County. So that's just part of the agreement that we pay for. So she had mentioned that the other day. So I think I'm kind of confirming what you're saying, that it's part of our overall agreement with them.
What I've got from the city recorder was this agreement wasn't changing our cost structure or increasing our cost in any way. It was really more about getting the language in there for the electrical permitting. So and on the memo, it states that the yellow highlights is for any wording that's changed or been added to the agreement. So this whole section on section 3.1 on 3.3 on compensation, been no changes to this section outside of the current agreement.
Rick Moore?
Councilor Cosby touched on, I was just wondering if maybe the city attorney can explain the compensation and payment part, just what that means. I don't know. That's a good question, Jim.
It's a perfectly good question, and no, I can't explain it. If you mean what does the not to exceed mean, that's $50,000. How we actually, what we pay really, I can't answer for you tonight, but we can bring that back to you.
I guess, do you know why that's newly added into there?
I don't know.
Okay. Chris, do we have like a timeline of when we have to approve this by?
Oh, wish I knew.
What if we did it next meeting?
You can pull it and come back to it next meeting.
I mean, I'm torn because I also realize we don't really have any choice on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intent was for it to be effective January 1st. So the longer it takes, the longer we're not in agreement for a service that we're being provided.
Clients,
So
yeah.
we're already there, so. Yeah, I mean, if the council's not comfortable and wants some more answers, we can definitely bring it back. And again, I apologize, Ruth Post isn't feeling well, so she couldn't be here tonight. She'd have the answers for you.
If we have specific questions, I think we should make sure we let the staff know what they are that we want answered. Councilor Causey?
I would like to know specifically what the expenses to the city related to this contract are, or to this service, and how those are accounted for.
And when you say how they're accounted for, are you asking where they end up in our budget?
Correct. In our budget and in our financials.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, they're captured in our building permits department. We have a separate department in the budget for building and planning. And we've got, we capture expenses there for personnel. That's where the permits clerk salary primarily comes out of, the deputy city recorder salary primarily comes out of. So there's personnel expenses there, but then you also have the expenses for supplies, materials and supplies, and then additionally, it's going to be these charges that we pay out for e-permits. So 70% of all of our permits goes to a check to Benton County for providing that service for us, and then 12% of what we collect goes to the state. And then the rest of that comes in as revenue that again pays off the city's expenses, which is mostly personnel and material services.
Councilor Cocker?
It appears that we do not need to have this implemented until 2025.
Well, that's the digital stuff, but the agreement itself needs to be updated.
Okay, because I've seen 2025 twice throughout this.
Do we have a general consensus that we want to push this to the next meeting?
Yes.
Do you have consensus with other people?
I mean, I don't, it doesn't matter to me.
I don't think it's gonna change
No,
anything.
But if we can, I guess.
I don't have a strong preference either way.
Strongly opposed.
I'm strongly opposed to big government, no matter what form it takes.
There he is.
Let's go back to chiseling it out on Grant and bringing it in. We really want to put that extra sewer line in.
Do you need a motion to table it, or do you want?
No, we'll just bring it back to you in a couple weeks. I guess I'll say the advantage of meeting in a couple weeks is it's not 4 weeks, it's only a couple weeks out, so. I may get scolded later from the city recorder, but I want the city council to be comfortable with things that are coming for you. I don't have all the answers for you tonight, so.
Thank you.
Bring it back to you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is our Housing and Economic Development Advisory Board formation. Chris, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, hopefully everybody had a chance to read through the memo. I won't go over that again, but essentially just looking to form a new ad hoc committee that'll oversee housing and economic development and advise the city council on those specific topics. I provided a whole bullet point list of things that I believe, based on strategic plan and previous conversations with the council and my own workload and things that I'm involved in, on things that I believe would be helpful to have a housing and economic development advisory board to look at and address and prepare and make recommendations to the city council and to myself. I also provided some language on just governance of that board and how it would function, number of members, selecting a chairperson, etc. That's provided as well. I did not prepare a draft application, but again, it'll be online. It'll be very similar to what we use for others, and selection process will be very similar as well. But I just wanted to hear from the council tonight, any concerns about the recommendation as it's been made, anything you want to add, or anything else you'd like to see, or what your general thoughts are on a kind of combined new housing and economic development advisory board.
Councilor Lehman?
Yeah, I found it curious that there weren't any members of the council involved in the committee. And I was wondering what the thought was behind that.
It's an advisory board to the committee. So just like you don't serve on the park board, or you don't serve on the planning commission, we've got a representative that's like a liaison to the planning commission. But this is I guess I mirrored it after the park advisory board, and nobody on the council serves on that advisory panel either. It's more taking a look at things and then making recommendations to the council as a body. And I'm also conscious of city council members' workload and everything else that we asked them to do with the subcommittees that you're on. And maybe that was front of mind with the new assignment, or with reviewing the assignments and everything as well. But I'm not opposed to the idea of like a liaison type position, but I don't know, I'd recommend having 3 members of the council on there. That might almost kind of overshadow some of the work that's being done by other volunteers.
So the reason I'm concerned about that is that I feel like there's an opportunity here, and that the city council has been kind of focusing on this for a while, and I don't want to lose that momentum or emphasis or whatever by kind of starting from scratch. But I certainly also appreciate what you're saying. I wasn't even going to ask about it, but I just feel like I was thinking about the budget committee and how we have the citizen involvement on the budget committee, but also everyone on the city council is also on the budget committee. And I was hoping that this committee might end up being something more like that, where it's kind of a joint, where as a city council, we want to do something. We've stated we want to do something to address housing and economic development. And this almost feels like we're saying, okay, let's go round up 8 or 10 people in the community and see if they can do something about it, instead of us taking the bull by the horns and doing something about it as a council, and inviting members of the community to have a more direct involvement in that process, rather than just, public comments or listening to the meetings. That's it.
Thank you. And Councilor McMorrin?
I had a similar thought. I totally get where Chris is coming from on it. I think my concerns are just like, as far as I can recall from the voters pamphlet, I think every member of the council like mentioned housing or talked about housing when they were running. And so I think it just, that is my concern a little bit, is like delegating our top priority to it, because we all care about parks, but parks are like a little more independent and it's not like this pressing crisis that's happening. So I feel fine having a sort of separate advisory board advising the council. But for something like housing and economic development that like all of us ran on and is important to all of us, and is something that I think touches a lot of other city things, you know, I mean, depending on what they recommend about housing and economic development, that will probably also affect our streets and our sewer and our water and our policing and our parks. And so it just feels like it might be something that the council should discuss more than I mean, I want to definitely get community input. It just, it does feel like we might, I'm worried about us doing the thing where we make a committee who makes recommendations to us. We're like, well, we don't want to do that. And then we just end up having the exact same discussion that the committee had at the council, and we do what we want anyway. Since sometimes we do that, but just, I think because it is something we don't care about a lot, I could see recommendations coming in that we don't like, and then that getting us off the rails a little bit, but.
And Councilor Andrade?
Thanks. Yeah, I had this same kinds of concerns, especially like I'm all for community input. Like I want to know what the community thinks on this, but I agree with what has been said. And then on top of it, if I remember correctly, I believe one of the ideas behind the formation of this committee was to include like community organization, like representation, so that we can have more meaningful conversations that around policy and ways that we can work with other organizations to address housing needs and such.
And so do we have any suggestions for how we would prefer it to be structured?
Off the top of my head, I think having 3 council members on there and 5 other slots, whether that be for individuals or for organizations that are interested in economic development and housing, would be appropriate.
Chris, what do you think about that as a structure?
Yeah, recommendation, I can see having a liaison position, but if you're not gonna have an advisory board that gathers information and gives advice to the council, it's just gonna be a council subcommittee. And you've got other members from the community on there. I just think it waters down the public input that you're gonna get, although members of the city council are also members of the public, I get that. I've got concerns, I guess, about overlaying this advisory committee with members of the council. There aren't any bullet points on this list of things that the city council can't take on with special work groups, special assignments, special meetings, work meeting that we could have. So any one of these bullet points are things that the council can and could have been doing over the last year, and we haven't done it because we don't have the time within our agendas. But what I'm hearing is you want to have an additional meeting with these items on your agendas with at least half of you. I just think it's asking a lot. But if the council's willing to assign 3 people to be on it and willing to have the meetings, then as far as organization goes, I think it will be fine. It does lend a little bit on, are you going to have one of those committee members serve as the chairperson, or one of those city council members serve as a committee member chair, or are you going to have a non-city council member serve as the chair? And we might just want to add a little bit more language to the governance portion of it if that's the way the council wants to.
Councilor Carter?
Actually, get one.
Okay.
Are you gonna be there at the meetings? I mean, I'm just feeling like, how will they know the laws and the rules and everything?
This is a committee I would staff, yeah.
Okay,
I would be at
okay.
these meetings.
Cause that's a concern, it's just to go off on, you know, I would sure like this, but.
Councilman Moore?
The two things I had were first, and I apologize, I was not here at the December meeting, so I don't know what exactly was discussed with this, but with respect to sort of the council members being on it, when we initially added this into the strategic plan at Councilor Lehman's recommendation, that was kind of what I was envisioning, is it would be just like police or finance and admin or public works. It would just be kind of another like city council committee. So I guess I don't have a problem with that personally. I think this is just a separate thing kind of from what I was thinking of. Doesn't mean it's not good. I think that the thing that would make me more comfortable with this then is sort of if we have like a pretty clear operating procedure for like the city council sends this board like specific questions or like specific tasks that the council has already decided on. And then this board, like, you know, the council wants to develop this parcel of land with like these options, and we send that to the board. And then the board is like, okay, based on this, like we recommend this option with these details and this is why. I would be more comfortable with that. I just am not super comfortable. Like I said, like it seems like housing is something that is kind of all of our top priorities. I don't like the idea of delegating our top priority completely to other folks. That just feels like not what I got onto the city council to do. But yeah.
And Councilor Causey?
I'm just, excuse me, just wondering if we have 3 counselors here tonight who'd be willing to serve on this. And my guess is that we do.
I think, yeah, I think that we would first want to make a decision on what this, what the preferred structure would be for the council before we do that. But one other thing I was going to mention is that missing from, I think this should be relevant no matter what the outcome is, but I think it's important to state in here that the chairperson would be voted on each year in January. I think that should be clear for all of our committees, is that that's in there. So, but I could go either way on this. I can see the value of having a community advisory board that works in collaboration with the council with some direction, or with council and staff. Assuming that Chris, city manager, knows what the priorities of the council are, I feel comfortable with him providing guidance to the committee. I also, we also did talk about the finance and admin committee kind of serving in this role previously, as we discussed. So I think that there are councilors who are interested and very much willing to serve in this role. Yeah, it can go either way.
I'm fine with the 3. I don't want to put up a stake at all. If we want to have 3 council members assigned, it can work. I just think we want to have a little difference there.
I think we all have the same, like, it just wasn't what I was expecting, so I wanted to talk about it, but it's not a hill that I'm willing to die on.
Yeah, when we were talking last month, and maybe it's because I kind of stayed in the memo. I mean, I've been planning, and our strategic plan has been calling for this economic development advisory board for a long period of time, and I do envision that being made up more of like property owners and developers, and not being like city members of the city council expected to do economic development and give themselves opinions on economic development. But we want to hear from the business community a little bit less about on the housing side. But there are, organizations in our region that are active in housing, are interested in affordable housing, and are doing things, and those are the kind of people I'd love to pull on this committee. I just don't want the organization to be such that they'd be less willing to help, because like, oh, it's just a subcommittee of the city council that's doing that, and I'm just like a guest, and be like, oh, I'm going to chair this committee in the city of Philomath to oversee these work and make recommendations to the council they can take action on. So I'm trying to make your job easier, not harder, but I understand wanting to be involved in the process too. So if we want to add the 3, and we can put it out there and we can see how it goes. It's an ad hoc committee. If we need to change it 6 months from now, we tweak it and change it then. And I think if we've got 3 members of the council willing to do it, then we do it. So
we have a motion one way or another.
let me just ask, do you feel impressed one way or another about having the chairperson be one of the city council members, or excluding one of the city council members from being that chair position? Because I tell you, if you don't say it one way or another, it's gonna lead to be the mayor or the council president or whatever, you know, it's tough. I think you've served on the inclusivity committee before, and it's a little tough position to be a mayor, but also not be a chairperson of a subcommittee.
I was happy not to be chairperson.
Well, you know, but it can be awkward for other members of the committee.
Right.
Because they are looking at the chair and then they're looking at the mayor, and if there's ever a disagreement, it's like, so I just think if we say it one way or another, then it's good. I think we should say one way or another. Would be that we say that the chairperson will be selected from the non-citizen members, and that just set the expectations. That's what's going to be.
Okay, I'm just gonna make a motion, and I'm gonna make a motion, and if we don't want to pass it, that's fine. I don't care. I'm gonna make a move. I'm gonna move that we approve the formation of the ad hoc housing and economic development advisory board as presented. Second. Okay.
I'll
Yes.
second it.
Okay, so we have a second by Councilor Lehman.
I'm happy to move forward as presented with the idea that we would come back in 6 months and review and see if we want to change the composition of the committee if it's not giving us what we're expecting it to.
Sure. That sounds reasonable.
But I'm also willing to vote against it, and
That's fine too. Okay.
A lot of really hardliners tonight.
So that's a amendment to the motion?
No, that was a second.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion, comments, questions? Councilor Crocker?
I would like to see, and if I'm the only one, then the chairman changed every year, even for all of the committees. I've been voting in people because they've done it before and they're comfortable and they want to do it again, and I don't want to take that away from them, but I'm not sure that's the best plan. So, I mean, I can see the point of someone who's the chairman maybe has more knowledge and is rolling with it, but I don't know. I just see that as a healthy addition to this.
Not a bad strategy for developing leaders and people comfortable chairing a meeting, and your committees and subcommittees and advisory committees is a good way to develop leaders.
Yep. So, any further discussion? Do I have a hand up?
We're not actually like amending this for that then, right? Or, because I kind of like, I would maybe not do every year, but like almost like a term limit, like you can do more than once, but then that's it. I don't know, something like that. Just because I know like sometimes, like I chaired the public art committee, and like sometimes we're right in the middle of like working with a specific contractor on a specific thing, and then, you know, and then we have to change chairs right in the middle of that. It could be a little weird, but
The current setup in most of these is that, you know, I'm thinking through, never mind, like on planning commission, it's pretty direct, it's every odd year, right? So,
Right.
so this year, we're not
Right.
looking at a new chairperson. Next year we will. And the budget committee, there's no specific, the council's policy has been generally, we try to have one of the non-city council members be the chairperson. That's not a standing rule, it's just something that we've traditionally done, it's a tradition. The park advisory board, I don't think it has any specifics, it just says the shall appoint, but I don't know if there's timeframes in there, I might be mistaken, but you know, there is something to letting your board or commission or panel or committee decide for themselves on whether they want a new chairperson or not. But when you're on the committee, sometimes you feel like they've been the chairperson for 3 or 4 years, I'm not going to vote against them, or I'm not going to say I would like to do it, even though I might. They may be reluctant to do it because somebody's been there for 2 or 3 or 4 years already. So, but at the same time, that may just be best left up to the committees, or as the city council, if you feel like a committee is stagnant or maybe it's time for leadership change, then you can make recommendations at that time.
Then it gets personal if we pick one
That's,
committee and say, it's time for a change.
that's the problem, right?
I don't
You-
wanna-
You
I
get a
don't wanna make it
superstar and you don't
personal.
want to
Yeah,
change them, but you
no.
have to because you decided beforehand. And then if you decide after the fact, it's like, well, we really don't want you to do it again.
That's politics.
Yeah.
But this is volunteering. This isn't politics.
So, seeing no further conversation on this one, all in favor of passing the motion as stated, please raise your hand, and say aye. Okay, all opposed, please raise your hand, and say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion does not carry because it's 3-3. So I entertain a second motion.
This is what happens when Teresa doesn't show up.
Other than Teresa.
Councilor Lehman?
I move that we form a Housing and Economic Development Advisory Board consisting of 3 city councilors and a minimum of 5 citizen or organizational members.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilor Lehman. Do I have a second? Second by Councilor Crocker. Any further conversation? Councilor Moore?
I'd like to amend the motion to just basically adopt the proposal by the city manager, but with the addition of the 3 city councilors to the composition, just so it still has all the language about sort of the terms and everything.
Amenable?
Sure.
Have a second on the amendment?
Yep, so we have a second. So you have a second? Okay. So we have a motion to amend. Do you have any comments or questions?
Seconded.
Second by Councilor Lehman.
Well, it would read, if I can, under number 2 composition, the HEDAB shall be composed of a minimum of 3 city council, 3 city council members, and a maximum of 11 citizen members.
Great. Okay. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Councilor Moore?
I guess just the other clarification is then for the terms of the council, or should we change that to just have it be on the every January, like with the rest of the liaison roles and committee assignments, instead of this whole like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year rotating thing?
This is listed as 3-year appointments. It's just the first year that it would rotate, just so that they're staggered. So
Right, I mean, it just imagine, like, I guess what I'm asking is, should the council appointees be just appointed every year on our normal committee appointment process instead of for a 3-year appointment?
Sure. And the non-city council terms would still rotate every 3.
Right, right. It just feels to keep everything for the council on the same page. Do I need to make an amendment then, or?
Should, yeah.
Okay, then I move to amend, section 2A to specify that the council appointees will be appointed at the same time as the rest of the council appointments in January. I don't know if that's the right.
The council appointees will be done annually.
Yeah.
Non-council appointees will be for 3-year terms.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. Have we voted on?
Now we have like,
2 amendments.
yeah, we're like stacked.
We can vote on this amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilor Moore and seconded by Councilor Lehman to language about the terms and appointments of the city council. All in favor of moving forward with that amendment, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now we have another amendment to add the city council, the 3 city council positions to the existing document. And do I have, or all in favor of that, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously there. And then any further discussion of the motion as amended now? Counselor Lehman.
I'd like to propose another amendment that every time someone convenes a meeting, they have to do this like Chris did just a minute ago.
You're getting voted down.
It's not even 10 p.m. and we're already loopy.
Do I have a second?
Nope.
Okay.
I can't second, yes.
All right. So, seeing no further discussion, all in favor of passing the motion as amended, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries unanimously. Excellent. How do we want to appoint those three? Well, do we want volunteers? Do we want to come back? You want me to make a motion? You want me to make recommendations?
Yeah, ask for volunteers, and if there's more, well, Teresa's not here, Counselor Nelson, so probably be best to quickly send a little survey out.
Okay.
And ask folks, and then we can decide that.
Bring that at the end of January.
If there's more than three, are we comfortable putting them in a hat and shaking them up and pulling three out? Is that okay?
Awesome. Okay. So, Councilman McMorrin, did I make all the motions?
I think so.
That I need.
This is when Ruth isn't here, you know, how can we be sure? But
Me.
Kelsey?
Just gotta-
Okay. Excellent. So new business item D8, water reservoir repair project approval. Chris, do you want to walk us through this?
And you hopefully have a chance to read through the memo and give some of the background. I'll just note that this is the first time we've talked about this outside of executive session. And so careful not to repeat things in exec session, but we can say things in here. We're in open session. I tried to give a summary without a lot of the details there, but enough to where the council understands the background and where we're coming from. But for anybody at home, this is a topic we've been dealing with for several months now, and I believe the council is pretty well versed in where we're at. So I'm just giving an update as to now and our current situation. So as of today, we've been able to get clarification on the insurance issue with City County Insurance Services, that they won't have any reservations in insuring this piece of infrastructure, the reservoir, if in a way that they're supposed to be done and they're engineered properly and all of that. They're going to treat it like any other piece of infrastructure that's ever had any type of repair done to it. So that insurance will be good. We've also got a verbal agreement from the contractor to, instead of just the 2-year warranty, to extend that out to 10 years. That's going to give us a lot of peace of mind for that first 10 years. We originally were hoping we could get longer than that, maybe even the life of it, but I think that was before we had an understanding from City County Insurance Services that they were going to be insured as well. So feel like we're getting a really good deal in that it'll be insured by CIS, and we're getting this additional 10-year warranty from the contractor, which is good. We've also, at this point, got a clarification from the engineer that the city attorney's office retained, Pivot Engineering out of Texas, that a repair can be completed, can be engineered. And I won't go into all the details of what that entails, but essentially it's engineering on where to place rods that are going to tie the one section and the other section where it's the cold joint, that we're going to tie that cold joint, make it so that cold joint is even a stronger joint than what it had been had that cold joint not been there, right? So being very conservative, or that's not the word, being very liberal in the amount of repair that gets done in the area that gets repaired, and just filling that area with repair so that it's as strong or stronger than what it would have been before the issue was discovered. So we have full confidence from the engineer that can do that. What we're looking for is, we've got a verbal agreement with HP Civil, who the city has a contract with, that they will be paying for the work that the city's had to have done up to this point to review the testing, do the invasive testing that was done, get the engineering work still on the actual repair, the agreement for the 10-year bond, and the agreement to complete the rest of the project. They're agreeable to all that verbally. There's a little bit of detail work that needs to be written down and gone through by myself and by the attorney, by our other attorney that we hired for this project specifically. So we haven't gotten a copy of that agreement from HP Civil yet. They're still working on that agreement. I have every intention that if it doesn't have all the things in there that we said we wanted in there, then we won't sign it. We'll send it back to them until we get one that does have everything that we need. But I'm also very confident that they want to get this repaired, get it done, and move on with the rest of the project as well. And the city's in that same interest, right? We want to move forward. We're listening to what we already have. I would have loved tonight so that you could comb through the whole thing and read all of the details. But at the end of the day, it's going to be drafted by an attorney and reviewed by an attorney. And there's going to be a lot there that even I'm going to be looking at the attorney saying, what does this legal mucky muck mean? But the conditions are going to be there. And so I want a comfort level from the city council that you're comfortable with moving forward through pairs as opposed to removing and replacing the slab, which was the original position the city took, was there's an issue, we know there's an issue, remove it, replace it. Moving forward today would mean we recognize there's an issue. We also recognize that a repair can be engineered and completed and constructed, and that we're adding a warranty on top of it, and the city's comfortable moving forward knowing that. So that's what I'm looking for tonight, is just a general agreement to move forward towards that agreement. When we get the agreement placed, to review it, get it signed, and get them back out on site working as quickly as possible. They'd like to be, as a side, they'd like to be out there tomorrow. They believe that there's work they can do with the sides and some of the other structures that they can start doing even while the slab is being engineered and repaired. But that won't interfere, and they can do both. They'd like to get back out to work as quickly as possible. Obviously, I've told them there's no work getting done there until I've at least got the agreement and it's agreeable and we've reviewed it and it's signed. Once that's signed, then I don't have a problem with them moving forward. When it's done, that's kind of what we have kind of hanging over them to get that agreement in place. So all that said, that's where we're at. Happy to get your feedback on where you're at and what your comfort level is on moving forward with the reservoir project at this point.
Councilor Warren?
If I'm reading this correctly, then will this whole process be like cost neutral for the city if they're reimbursing us for testing and then we're not paying for any additional work? So it'll still be what we were, like what we signed a contract at the end of the day? Okay. And then if we approve this tonight, do you have an estimate of like how far behind schedule the completion date would be?
So if they can get on it now, the big target is we're still going to go out, hopefully by the end of the month still, with a RFP for the construction of the treatment plant itself.
Right, okay.
That's going to dovetail with the completion of this project, and what we're hearing from HP Civil is they believe those timeframes will still be able to get completed by the end of this summer.
Okay.
The money that we got from the state for the treatment plant and the reservoir should be spent by the end of this. So the time frame we're giving them on the RFP for the treatment plant needs to be done before the end of the year, closed out, done, everything done by the end of the year. So, yeah, if they're able to get back to work and get going on it, I don't see any reason why they can't be done this summer still, as planned.
And then the last question, I am not familiar with large structure warranties. I feel like I know how a warranty works on like a car or a computer, but like if there is a problem with a reservoir, how does that warranty work? Like, do they build a new one? Do they repair it? Are we reimbursed for like lost time where we're not able to use the reservoir? Do you have an idea of how that works?
Yeah, Jim could probably speak to that, city attorney, a little bit better. I think it depends on what's warranted. I believe my understanding is they're going to provide just a bond.
Okay.
Will be the tool that they'll use, and
Okay.
so it would be contacting their contacting their bonding agency, notifying them that there's an issue. Typically, what we see is that company's going to try to make it right before having to go against the bond, that they're going to try to make it right on their own because they don't want a mark against them on essentially their bonding company, their insurance that they provide. So I think that motivates companies to make it right, and then you only go after the bond or they're not with you to your satisfaction. Resort as you would go for the bonding company. Jim, does that sound about right in your experience?
Yeah, so the bond amount would be sufficient to replace the structure if it should fail. And I think that's a key in this, that this slab is the foundation for the rest of the reservoir. And so while we have a high degree of confidence that a solution can be engineered, there's a lot of things that can still go wrong. So we're talking about the slab. There's a bunch of other things too. So that 10-year warranty is important. The bond covering that means that the warranty has the ability to actually replace the reservoir itself.
Thank you. Councilor Causey.
Kind of a related question. On the second page of the memo, you indicate that there likely will still be some litigation following the conclusion of the project. Can you tell me what you were thinking of there?
It may not be direct litigation with the city, but there's a lot of action between the contractor, their subcontractor, and the supplier over whose fault this is.
Is that something, would the city be named as a participant in that?
It's possible. I think that if we get pulled into it, it'll likely have to do with liquidated damages. And I think we're trying to work that out in advance with HP Civil, but we don't have a contractual relationship, and we don't want one, with the subcontractor or supplier. Our contract is with HP Civil, and we're not going to be, we don't have privity of contract, and we shouldn't be responsible for whatever contractual problems there are between HP Civil and the people who work for them.
Moving forward is an acknowledgement. We've stated it's in every party's best interest to move forward and get the reservoir completed, right? It's not getting any less expensive to have it sitting there as costs continue to go up and everything else and all the uncertainty continues to rise. So the agreement's also going to state that it's in everybody's best interest to move forward, but moving forward doesn't mean we've forgiven everything that's happened in the past, right? When the project's complete, we're going to look back and they're going to be looking at liquidated damages and whose fault was it, and were there delays, and were there, things that different parties could have, should have done, and more than likely that will be litigated. And whether the city gets pulled into that or not, we don't know. The fact is, if we're going to get pulled into or not, it's going to happen regardless of whether it's built or not. Right now, it's let's move forward and get it built, so we know what kind of dollars and cents we're talking about. But again, it doesn't. By agreeing to this, they've given us a blank check to pay for everything, and they've agreed fault on everything on their part either. So that may still come about in the future, regardless.
Councilor Cocker.
You asked how we felt, and I would feel much better if it was done right the first time, but I agree that moving forward is the most important thing. But I was down at PCS, and I'm sorry, this is a little bit off, and people were telling me that we're going to be taking up half of their parking lot for this project. Is that correct?
More than half. Yeah, we have an agreement with them for them to use the city's property for a parking lot, and we've agreed to that, and we've helped them make improvements there. But the new treatment plant is going to take up that area, so we've been in communications with them about new parking areas and new access points, and so yeah, we've been working with them for a couple of years on that plan.
There was some concern.
So we do have a recommended motion. Councilor Causey? Your hand up?
I move to proceed with the reservoir repair and direct the city manager to execute an agreement with HP Civil Incorporated with the terms generally outlined in this memo.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councilor Lehman? So we have a motion made by Councilor Causey, second by Councilor Lehman. Any further comments, discussion? Being none, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Excellent. Thank you so much. Really excited to see that project moving forward.
And I'll report back as soon as we get the agreement, things move forward. I probably won't wait till the next council meeting. I'll send an email to the council so you're kept appraised of where we're at with that project. It does need to keep moving forward.
Next on the agenda is approving the 2024 System Development Charge Rate Schedule. You want to walk us through this?
Yeah, and just briefly, this is done annually. We looked at the ENR. I reach out to our city engineer, Chris Brigado at West Tech, looks at the ENR index and what the changes are from December to December. This year, that index went up 2.58%, and our SDC methodology says that we're going to tie our SDC fees to that ENR, and so we've just looked at all of those rates, and we've increased each of the SDCs the 2.58%. You can see the totals on the chart below. So this is, we typically look like a single family residential home, kind of a rate standard, and I think we compared to it. So as I included in the memo, the base STC fee for a new home in Wilmouth just topped over $30,000. So it's $30,000. That just disappeared in front of me. $30,543. Thank you. So we do this every year. The consequences of not doing it is you don't collect money in SDCs to pay for the projects that you need, that the SDCs you're collecting are intended to pay for. So you end up passing those on to ratepayers, and that's a disadvantage to the ratepayers. So this is really about developers paying for their fair share of the developments that they're bringing in. This is just a resolution. A motion.
And Councilor Warren.
How much flexibilities does the council have with this if it's tied to that methodology?
A lot of flexibility. You can waive SDCs altogether. You can waive them for a short period of time. You can direct them other places. The councils have a lot of discretion on the SDCs. There are caps of state law on how much you can charge something specific, and even then, typically you're going to find another source of revenue to kind of backfill that, rather than like not collecting the SDCs. You'll find another revenue source to pay or put towards the SDC fees, so that you're still collecting the SDC. It's just coming from another payment source other than the customer or the property owner.
And then, and I feel like we talked about this on the budget committee or something at some point, so I apologize, I don't remember, but do we only charge SDCs for transportation and parks to residential development? We don't charge that to commercial development?
Just parks is the only one's different. So transportation, we do charge businesses. Is you're looking at the table?
I just didn't, maybe I'm reading that wrong.
Well, the sample that's given is a house, because
Okay.
kind of the base unit, but every different use, whether it be a home or a small business or warehousing, has got a different factor. It's this ELNDT number. This is a average national figure that we use. For every warehouse, it's going to generate X number of trips of traffic per day.
Okay.
And based on that trip generation, you're going to assign that SDC fee to it. So the example we give here is the house, but every single different use is going to have a different ELNDT. And we utilize that within our methodology.
The parks is only, right?
Parks is only for residential. We don't charge that to commercial or industrial users. Okay. The argument being they're not generating new park users just because you have a business. It's for and against that.
I was going to say, have you been in a lot lately?
For the most part, those people are also bought a house in town or, contributed to the park STC through the purchase of the home. So.
Councilor Causey?
Yes, thank you. I don't think the magnitude of this increase is unreasonable, but I know in the past we have also looked at comparable SDCs for in other jurisdictions. And I believe Mr. Brewer may have provided those, but I would be interested in seeing what other communities in the area are charging. And it would also be interesting to know how communities are using or waiving SDCs to encourage affordable housing.
Oregon Cities does a study periodically. I don't believe they do it every year, but they do it periodically, and so that gets published. Say the joke, but I mean, one of the interesting findings of that is if you want to look at who has the lowest SDC fees, just look at who hasn't done any capital improvement projects over the last several years. And if you want to see who has the highest fees, you look at who's done the most recent capital projects and who's actively, you know, replacing water treatment plants and reservoirs and sewer plants and all of that. So a city's SDCs are a little bit different than like what we charge for like a building permit, or not building permit, like a planning review fee, where we're looking at what does Corvallis charge for their plan review fee, how many employees do they have looking at it, who touches it, how long does it take, what's their process to ours. On SDCs, it's really just a matter of dollar cents and it's infrastructure, and every city's going to be different. It's not, you can't look at it based on population size, you can't really judge it that way. It's really based on who has, I would say, the most active or aggressive or accurate master plans, water, sewer, street, transportation, park. City of Philomath, we have very up-to-date and accurate master plans, and we use those master plans to determine what capital projects we're going to do, and that's what rolls into what we're collecting for SDCs. Some cities are more passive, they don't update their plans very often. They get laxed in making upgrades and those types of things, and so they're going to have artificially low system development charges. And to the second point, Councillor Kazi, I can bring back some information. In fact, that might be a good thing for the Housing and Economic Development Advisory Board to look at, would be what are the different ways that different communities are using SDCs to do that, or are making payments in SDCs for that. It can be done. There's excise taxes on top of SDC fees that some communities use, construction excise tax, where outside of the realm of SDCs, you'd collect an additional percentage of construction that would go into a pool that could be directly put towards affordable housing, subsidized housing projects. So there's a whole realm of different things that can be done there. We could spend several meetings exploring those, but I'd be happy to bring that back to you if that was a priority for the council.
Mr. Brewer, do you have anything to add to that?
There is a survey the league did, I think, last April of 2023. They did it a little bit different than you might expect. So it's done kind of by quintiles, and a survey and averages that way. I think one of the points that people and city manager mentioned this early on, if you don't charge SDCs, then you have to charge higher rates, because there's no free lunch in providing the infrastructure that serves development. So houses need potable water, and they need sewage, and to some extent you can either people can either pay up front or they can pay as they go. And often when we look at system development charges, it's a pretty low percentage of the overall development cost. And it does fix that in time, as opposed to, okay, I can buy a house or I can buy a business, but I can't afford the rate increases that are coming with my utility bills.
Mm,
It's a tough calculus for people.
thank you. I move the City Council approve Resolution 2401 establishing the 2024 SDC rates.
Thank you. Do I have a second? We have a motion made by Councilor Causey and seconded by Councilor Lehman. Any further comments, discussions? Councilor Moore?
I don't know if it needs to be a motion, but I would also then like to intentionally refer a conversation about STCs to the new housing and economic development.
Got it. I can do that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much for that. Okay, Chris, did you want to talk anything about your management report?
There's questions. I don't want to read the bullet points, but it's been very busy. Everybody's very busy right now. I sometimes look at this list. I'm like, man, what did I do before I had the assistant city manager here? Half that list of stuff she's working on. Public works is super busy right now. Planning's busy, and planners up to speed and going full bore. We do have the agreement in place with Adair Village, so he's spending 1 day a week up in Adair Village, which is great. We're getting a little bit of the salary covered for that, which is good. And yeah, everybody's busy. Police are busy. We got people in training and coming back from training, and it's nice to be nice when we got a full force and everybody's out working. But yeah, things are hopping in the city. Very, very busy. A lot going on. Any questions on anything that's stated here or not stated here?
Councilor Causey?
Just two questions. Could you remind me what the 17th Street RRFB crossing project is? And on the last, go ahead.
It's rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So this is the improved crosswalk with the rapid flashing lights, like what we have up by Boulevard Apartments.
Okay.
That came out of the school safety circulation study that was done, was to replace that one single yellow overhead light with the rapid flashing beacon system instead.
Cool. Thank you. And my other question is, what was the finding related to the ARPA funds?
See that probably as early as next month. The finding essentially was that the city had failed to provide the appropriate reports to the state. And we talked to the state, and the state said, no, we don't need any reports. But when you read the agreement with the state, it says that we're supposed to be providing those reports. But we also hear from the state that we're kind of the I don't know if guinea pigs is the right word, but we're the furthest along in our process of spending these monies. And so they still don't totally appreciate and know what reports they need to be getting and what they should look like. So the state is more than happy with where we're at in the project, but the auditor's reading a contract and an agreement that says the city shall do these things, and we're not compliant because we've not done it because the state's not asked for it. So it's, we went back and forth with the auditor. At the end of the day, you're not going to win against an auditor. You're just going to state their case. They're going to state theirs. We want our auditors to be independent and to be truly that way. And so, anyway, it'll show up. It's not something that I think the council needs to be overly worried about. We'd love to have no comments. And these ARPA funds, that's not the case this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the manager report?
Since you mentioned it, Chris, I see there is an RFP for an auditor to be released. Do you rebid that every year?
No, not every year, but best practices every 3 to 5 years to go out in the pool and see who's out there. I can tell you they're getting harder and harder to come by. There's not this line of auditors wanting our business. So it'll be a little bit tricky. Just municipal auditors is turning into an art form that's more and more difficult to find. On top of finance directors and anything in municipal finance is just difficult right now, including auditors. There's some that just don't do it. It's a lot of work, not a lot of pay. They can make more money doing other things for corporate side and the private side. So there's just a lot that are choosing to not provide municipal audits anymore. They're still out there, and there's good firms out there. I think our current firm is good as well, but it's been a long time since we've gone out and just seen who else is out there. So,
Okay, thank you.
you know of anybody?
Any council reports?
An email to the council with year-end statistics from the fire and rescue district. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, I'd encourage you to do that. There's a lot of information there. I think the most helpful thing is you can read the narrative, which for some reason the narrative is like the third page. Just the overall thing is that call volumes continue to increase, and they had a total of 1,015 calls in 2023, which I think like 530 or something of were in the actual city of Philomath. And I think it was something like 82 maybe percent of those calls, something around there, were medical calls. So it's Philomath Fire and Rescue, mostly Philomath Rescue, who occasionally puts out fires as well. And so, yeah, and then I also included in the email just they are basically running, bursting at the seams with the number of calls they're getting versus the amount of staffing they have. And they are having trouble getting volunteers. So please, if you know anyone who might be interested in becoming a volunteer, they would love to have more. As the call volumes have increased, the percentage of staff time on those calls that were responded to by volunteers has decreased, which is not a good sort of cross to have, because the volunteers are kind of the only thing that are keeping the fire department alive at the point. I mean, their staff is wonderful. They only have so many. So that's the main takeaway. The one last thing too, which will be interesting to keep an eye on, is that today the fire board decided not to go with the Philomath News as their exclusive distributor for public notices, because their attorney had a different view than ours, which is just, it'll be interesting to kind of see where things end up going with that. They are still going to publish things in the Philomath News, but they're also going to keep publishing them in the Gazette Times to be safe. And then I think they basically are going to wait and see if we get sued, and then as long as we don't get sued, they'll stop doing it in the Gazette Times eventually.
I think we'll see more legislation that's more friendly towards online newspaper publishing as that continues to grow and become really a more reflective news outlet that people can utilize. So yeah, I think we'll see more legislation before we'll see lawsuits. But
yes, I think that's the whole point.
Councilor Cocker?
Do they still do tuition help for the volunteers?
Yes.
And is that advertised clearly?
Yes, it's
Even on campus or something?
Yeah, so there's basically two different types of volunteers. There's resident volunteers and just volunteers. And the resident volunteer program is still pretty strong. And that there's actually, like, if you see one of the pie charts has sort of response hours or whatever by category, and there's actually more response hours by resident volunteers than by the paid professional staff. So that's how heavily they rely on that. And then the smallest category are those just normal volunteers, so that's what they're really trying to expand on. But yeah, there is the resident volunteer programs. If you know college students that have an interest in emergency response or EMT work or firefighter work, the fire and rescue district will pay for housing and partially their tuition in exchange for them being on call and living at the fire station and responding to calls during certain shifts. So that's been a good program for them. They just would like more of those community volunteers, because basically the resident volunteers are kind of treated as firefighters. So when there is a call, they go out, and then they need other people to backfill the station while those firefighters are out at a call. So yeah.
Anything else from any other councilors?
Can you touch on that faster?
Oh yeah. And then I also sent another email out with I know you wanted other counselors, and I'm sorry. I sent another email out about an event on Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. at Suburban Christian Church that is being sort of co-hosted by Strengthening Rural Families here in Philomath and the Lynn Benton chapter, whatever, of Every Child Oregon, as well as our local sort of field office of the Oregon Department of Human Services, that will be trying to help recruit more resource parents, which is the new term for foster parents, so children in the child welfare system. The Benton County office to recruit families is new. It used to all go through Lynn County, and they've recently opened up an office in Benton County that can get resource parents, but because it's been in Lynn County for so long, they have very few available families in Benton County for these foster kids. And so then that leads to issues. I mean, obviously you need as many families as you can, but it also leads to issues where if a child from Benton County enters the child welfare system, there are so few families in Benton County that they're often taken to a different county, and that's not good. You know, you want to try to keep life as normal as possible. So they're really trying to boost how many available county. So if you're able to attend, or if you can spread the word on that, that is Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. at Suburban Christian Church, and there'll be food provided. Or if you're interested and can't come, let me know and I can connect you with the folks. So yeah, thank you.
If I can just add real quick on that, actually Rose Bricker used to be in that position at Benton County. She's moved to a different position since then, but she came and presented to the Philomath Luncheon Group with similar comments here a few months ago. And one of the things that kind of rang with that group was they're not looking for people that are necessarily they're not only looking for people that are full-time resource parents, they also need people that can like cover an evening while the resource parents go on a date, or they can, going on vacation for a week and maybe they can't take, the child, or they can't take them out of state or whatever. And so they're also looking for families that maybe don't want to do it full-time, but could do it at times. Maybe it's more like a babysitter, daycare type thing. You still have to go through the process and get registered and get set up. But it can just be very intermittent as well. That's also very much needed. So it's not limited to just people that can be a full-time resource parent.
I'll also just mention briefly that we're doing the If I Were Mayor contest again this year. The deadline will be in early March, and I'm going to reach out later, ask for folks if they want to help judge those entries. So. But if you want to advertise and try to recruit some kids, that'd be great. Doesn't have to be done through the schools. Anything else? Sergeant Gursky, you're here. Do you want to say anything?
Lieutenant.
Sorry, Lieutenant. Yeah, I got demoted today as soon as I walked in the door.
I just would add to what Chris said. We've got Scott Andrade. He's been out of the academy now for 11 weeks, so he is moving from phase 2 to phase 3 here in about a week and a half. Then after that, he'll go to shadow phase, and then hopefully we'll see him out on the streets solo here shortly. Additionally, we've got Coulter in the academy. He will hopefully graduate late spring, early summer, and then we have Thomas DeVick. Our newest hire will be attending the academy on January 29th. So we've got a lot of training going on, a lot of training coming up. So that's exciting.
Did they increase the capacity of the academy or something like that?
They have. They've more than doubled it. It's like, so Coulter, he's the first one to be in a 60 officer class. And then it sounds like Thomas DeVick's class is going to be similar. So
Previous to that, they were 30.
yeah, right about there.
Doubled.
That's awesome.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Well, that's all we got. So thank you all for being here. Appreciate the audience, and yeah, we'll be adjourning the meeting.
Do we know? Are we gonna have an executive council?
Oh, we're gonna have an executive session.
No.